He always says to wait till we're on screen. Are we supposed to do that? There we are.
Okay.
Good evening. I'd like to call this January 14th meeting of the Murraysville Planning Commission to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
United States of America,
For which
to the republic which stands
under God,
one nation, under God,
and justice for all.
indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
That was a little tough with the back feet there. Mr. Nestico, can you take the roll, please?
Sure. Mr. Midall.
Here,
Mr. Kearns.
Present.
Mr. Patrick.
Here.
Mr. Olszewski.
Here.
Mr. Lemke.
Here.
Mr. Levecki.
Here.
Ms. Hoy.
here,
Okay, did everyone have a chance to look over the minutes or have any questions, concerns, or comments for those?
Move they be accepted as posted.
And I second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
second,
Aye.
aye,
All those opposed? And none. Doesn't look like we have any public comment for anything that's not on the agenda. So with that said, the first order of business will be a public hearing for conditional use 1-25, Mr. Handyman, located at 5608 William Penn Highway. It's a conditional use application for a parking lot on a lot other than the principal use. It's tax parcel 49-15-00-0-45 in the B Business Zoning District. Mr. Nestico, you want to give us a brief synopsis of this?
And then we'll call the applicant to testify. So this is for a property located on Route 22. It's a conditional use application for a parking lot to be installed adjacent to the an additional property owned by the applicant, because it is not the primary use for the location. It is located in the B Business District, and the applicant is present and does have a presentation for the Planning Commission this evening.
Okay, Mr. Lemke, before we get started here, do you want to swear in anybody who plans to testify during this hearing?
Sure. Anybody that plans to testify, stand and raise your right arm. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. My name is Brian Almeter with the firm of Farringer McCarty Gray, representing the applicant. With me this evening is the applicant, Mr. Reaping. He owns the property and is using the property today.
Thank you. I was just going to tell you I have things to pull up. Thank you.
I put together a quick package just to run through it real quick. Some of this is being reiterated, but property is located on the north side of William Penn Highway, just west of Berlin Farm Road, sort of in that strip of retail businesses. Rick's Sports Bar is just off to the left there, or to the west. The property is 5608 William Penn Highway. That's on the 911 address. It contains 0.662 acres, and as mentioned, it's in the B zoning district. The requested conditional use is for a parking lot on the adjacent property. Mr. Reaping owns the adjacent tax parcel number 44 on this particular slide. If you could go to the next one, you can zoom in.
I can do that. Yeah, you can do it on there as well, if you'd like.
Okay. So this is just an enlargement. Mr. Reaping owns office building and some parking spaces for any business visitors. And what the intent here is to reuse what's there now, which is basically a gravel area that used to service, I believe it was a home, maybe a business in between. So that's really the intent. We go to the next slide. This is the survey that was prepared by others that we've used for the proposed site plan. This was the plan that was submitted as part of the conditional use application showing the outline of the property in red, and we put some color on the slope areas around the property. Mr. Reaping has found as part of the property that the concrete slab for the house or structure that was on the property was there. It was just covered over. So he removed the dirt from that and plans on using that for a roll-off dumpster for his employees to occasionally unload building materials into the dumpster because it's a property that can be accessed easily by the trash hauler that he's hired. In addition to, go to the next slide, which is just an enlargement of the site plan. In addition to reusing that concrete pad, he proposes to build a fence in front of that to screen the dumpster. This would be a board-on-board. Some of the structure's already there, and he was asked to stop. The plan proposes some landscaping in front of that fence, as well as an extension of the planting that services or that's around the existing office building. We've shown on this plan the number of spaces, even though it's gravel, they won't be painted or striped or that type of thing, but we wanted to show sort of compliance with the dimensional aspects of 10 parking spaces. And this would be reusing the driveway curb cut that was already there as part of the 22 widening of a number of years ago. What I wanted to show also for the Planning Commission and for the record, some historic photographs to show what was there, to show that there was a building there and gravel access drive. This was a tax map image of 2003. The next slide is the tax map image of 2009. The structure's still there and a little bit larger a gravel area and some, I think there was I remember right, a business that maybe did some chainsaw sculpturing or something like that. I think this was the property that had some of that out front along 22. Next slide is the 2014 tax map image. Again, shows the gravel areas and the driveway still there, but the building had been removed. 2017, again, similar. And then we also wanted to show some historic street views. I think this was 2007, 2014, I believe, 2020, 21, as this was when Mr. Reaping purchased the property. And then this is the image currently from Google Street View. You can see in this image the trash roll-off dumpster, start of the structure for the screen fencing, and the gravel that will basically be reused for parking his vehicles. What I would like to do, just for the record, also because there are certain conditional use items that we have to meet, just go through these very quickly. As mentioned, the property was a commercial use or some semblance of that ahead of this. The proposed use as a parking lot for the building itself on the right-hand side there in that image is a less intense use than what was there prior. The site is accessed directly from William Penn Highway. Current driveway configuration is adequate for the intended parking and no additional traffic is intended or anticipated for this use. Since this was a business on the property, the use is consistent with the character of the adjacent properties. Section 2020-30B, building signs and other occupiable structures are not proposed for this lot. The improvements consist of minor regrading, top dressing of the current gravel area for 10 vehicles, along with, as I mentioned, the board-on-board screen fence. These uses will not hinder or discourage appropriate development on the adjacent properties. 2020-30C, the proposed use will be harmonious with the uses that are immediately adjacent in the zoning district and will not limit or impact the community in general. 2020-30D, the size and density of the parking area is consistent with prior uses or less intense, since there's no buildings or structures, and therefore it will not be a nuisance to nearby businesses or properties, and it's intended that the parking use will not generate any abnormal vibrations or noise, fumes, lighting, or pollution. No lighting is proposed for the parking areas. Again, this is really more for daytime use and for staff. The proposed improvements, this is 2020-30E, the proposed improvements and minor top dressing is intended to conform with the land operations ordinance of the municipality. 2020-30F, it's the intent of the use to comply with all municipal requirements unless a waiver or modification is requested, and we haven't requested any of those at this time. Summary of applicable parking standards, because this is a parking lot for an adjoining use. 2020-68A4, the parking spaces are intended to meet the Article 5 standards. 2020-68A5A and D, the parking spaces and associated driveways are proposed to remain as gravel, which is an acceptable surface. We didn't want to pave it due to stormwater and other pollutants that may come off a paved driveway, and it just isn't necessary for the intended use. 2020-68A7, the parking spaces are intended to be used by vehicles associated with the adjacent lot. No additional parking is proposed outside of that particular use. 2020-76A, 4A, and B, the parking spaces are located within 500 feet of the adjacent parcel, and there's a path for those employees that would go from that parking area to the office or a meeting space within that adjacent business. 2020-76A6, parking area and proposed gravel surface screens is going to be screened from the adjacent street. Again, lighting is not proposed. In 2020-76A7, the parking area has proposed landscape screen and it will be year-round. It'll be a semi-evergreen or evergreen plantings. I think that's all that I have for the commission. If there's any questions, we'll be certainly happy to entertain them.
So you mentioned there was landscaping? You're going to put some
Yeah.
screening? Okay.
Yeah, on the site plan, there's
Okay.
some shrubs in front of the fence and shrubs along the parking space closest to 22 and an extension from the current landscape island that's around the existing building.
Okay, so the existing parcel has the hard surface parking
Yeah,
with
right.
handicap access and everything like that. So there really isn't any improvements happening here. This is a little bit of an odd proposal in that respect. So what are the next steps for this project? Is there a site plan that'll be required to follow this up?
I believe that they did submit a site plan.
The image that's up on the screen is a portion of the site plan that was submitted, and I'm not sure exactly. I think the intent is to gain approval of the conditional use to allow vehicles to be parked here and the dumpster. I think everything else is addressed on the site plan.
Okay, well, that was my question. Is there another approval that this needs to go through other than the conditional use? Or is it just the conditional use with this site plan that they've submitted?
It would just be the conditional use.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be the only one.
Okay, I just wanted to make that clear since it's a little bit of a unique situation with basically no improvements.
Sure.
Does anybody else have any questions? No? With no one here in the audience, I don't think we have anything else either.
Just from staff's review of this project, one of the concerns we had was relating to the parking. It was discussed, the surface of the parking lot. It was discussed that it's going to remain as a gravel lot, and I think that historically there has been some feedback and some concerns with planning and council as far as gravel lots are concerned. The section reference was 22068A5, which indicates it should be an impervious surface or pervious surface that is similar to an impervious surface. Now, I'm not sure historically what that means for planning and within the municipality, but that would be the one concern that staff had, and the other being that, again, that the plantings and the vegetation provide an adequate screen for the property. I have the image pulled up here, and I'm not quite sure if we pull that image up onto the screen, if these are the only plantings that are going to be installed on these two locations, or if it's also going to surround the lot as well.
That was the intent, was just those plantings to screen the trash area and the gravel area, which has 4 or 5 spaces along that side of the property. It was just a natural extension of the existing landscape bed that's also noted there. It's sort of a upside down J, yes. The left-hand side is a cut slope, and there is natural plantings between this property and the adjoining property to the left, so we were not proposing any plantings.
In this area on the,
Yeah.
on the left? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And as one of the perspective images that we showed from Google Earth, this sits up above Route 22 as well, and you know, it's some screening there along the house on the right-hand side or along the office, I think would help and makes natural sense. The left,
Sorry.
I'm not sure there's anything that really sort of ties it down. I think it would look a little odd, to be honest with you, that if there was some shrubs planted there to screen that side. And I think, as we said, I think the slope and the natural plantings, natural vegetation along that edge adequately protects the adjoining property.
Okay. So yeah, that is the feedback from staff. Otherwise, the use is appropriate and does fit in the district. It makes sense, I guess, based on the nature of the business next door, why they do have the need for the parking. So that's the feedback from a staffing standpoint.
Okay, well, does anybody else have any other questions? With there being no more questions or input, is there any reason we can't close the public hearing, in your opinion?
No, I think you can close the public hearing.
Okay. So, you accept the motion to close the public hearing then?
So moved.
Motioned and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? And there are none.
Wait, excuse me, what is the motion, please?
To close the public hearing.
Yay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the public hearing's closed. Now, the next step would be then to come back for the formal approval for this thing, right, and go through the process.
Can that happen tonight? Can a recommendation happen tonight?
Well-
To be able to move to council?
Certainly.
Are we approving a site plan here, or is just the conditional use of a parking lot?
It's listed as a public hearing on the agenda for the conditional use of the parking lot to be on an adjacent, on a property where the actual use is not located. Basically, the business is on the neighboring property lot. They want to use this lot for overflow parking for employees.
Was there going to be a site plan that complies with municipal ordinances submitted then? As a separate application?
Well, that was my question, and then Mr. Nestico said that the site plan was submitted as part of this, and there really wouldn't be another site plan required because there's no real improvements other than some landscaping.
Well, that seems to fly in the face of the ordinances. Parking lots are to be paved.
Correct.
Or
50% impervious, correct?
I believe that even under your definition for gravel is considered an impervious surface.
Not when you read the ordinance, it doesn't.
I think
the section that deals with paving of parking lots, it indicates that pervious is similar to asphalt or concrete.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to pull up the zoning code. I think there's probably a difference between the zoning language.
Bob, are you referring to the definition of impervious or an impervious surface as in general or as it relates to parking?
I think when Mr. Nestico finds the section and reads it, it's pretty obvious that parking areas are to be paved. Now, they can put an impervious asphalt or concrete surface down,
In
but it doesn't say that gravel's approved.
in the stormwater ordinance, it does say gravel areas are counted as impervious areas. If they direct.
Yeah, but that does not defeat the zoning ordinance requirements.
That would be a requirement to treat gravel.
Yeah, I think it's a calculation procedure, but it doesn't get around the
Paving requirement.
ordinance.
I also,
Well, unless the applicant gets a variance for that.
I don't have the full ordinance in front of me, but my recollection was also something to do with the number of spaces as well. I think it's 10 spaces or less was another caveat
Here's the
there
definition in the zoning.
that I know that I've seen before. And again, just for
I think we would be looking at
the record, this is
parking. Where's the parking?
This is for employees to park. Understand if, you know, it explicitly says asphalt or concrete, but this has been there for as long as I've been in the Pittsburgh area, which is early 90s. I just don't see the reason to require this applicant to pave this area.
Well, everybody else that does a business in Murraysville that puts in a parking lot, it's always been paved. The only exception that I'm aware of is that recreation areas can be gravel.
Correct, that's built into the zoning ordinance. I think, I was trying to look up the stormwater ordinance as we're here. Obviously, it's difficult to do on the fly, but there is a distinction between the requirements of the zoning ordinance and the requirements of the stormwater management ordinance. And I think maybe the confusion lies in that while zoning may require a paved or impervious lot, the analysis then shifts over to stormwater management as to how that's treated for stormwater control purposes. So, I just want to be
I
sure
just
that.
found it. It's 220-68
5,
A5.
that's right.
Yeah, the surfacing for off-street parking areas shall be as follows. For parking surfaces at sites other than those included in subsection A5B, which is right below here, the parking areas shall be graded for proper drainage and shall provide an impervious surface such as concrete or bituminous concrete, or a pervious surface that provides a parking surface similar to concrete or bituminous concrete. Which,
And I think if you drive this, you'll find that it probably does feel like concrete or pavement because it's been driven on for the last 40 years.
Except for the areas that they're expanding it to.
It's not really expanding. I just showed the limits of the parking spaces to show compliance with the code.
B.
there was a business here up until probably the widening of 22 on this property that used basically the whole front yard for parking, wood carving or something. I'm not sure what they were doing. It was used and parked on.
It's defined in the zoning ordinance, impervious surface. Surfaces with a coefficient of runoff greater than 0.85.
You're talking apples and oranges.
Well, I don't think so, Bob. That's in the zoning ordinance. What's the coefficient for gravel? I don't know it off the top of my head. Is it 0.85? It's somewhere in the 0.8 range. I do know that.
Yeah, it depends on whether you're talking DEP or other codes, but I would say you're in that range.
And other areas determined by the municipal engineer to be impervious within the meaning of this definition.
So maybe we need a determination by the municipal engineer according to that definition.
I think this is going to take a little bit of discussion behind the scenes. Number one, to check precedents that's been referenced, and two, just to provide us a guidance as to what truly is an impervious surface.
Yeah, I think that would make sense. I could talk with the engineer. We can make a determination then based on the definitions presented. We can certainly compare that with the stormwater management ordinance as well. But again, I think, sticking to the zoning side of things, being that it's a conditional use, it's certainly something that the Planning Commission can have latitude on with their recommendation and ultimately, council make a decision on. But it may make sense to examine the way the definition is applied here. May have to be some calculations done. Maybe have to take a trip out to the site to see how much of that surface is already, I guess, compacted or installed, and see if there is going to be any modification to that or any expansion of that.
Excuse me, sir. I heard that there was going to be some gravel overlay or something on top of the existing base.
It was just moving the gravel around to make it flat.
Okay.
Just as your driveway would, as you're driving on it, you're going to get some rutting in there and movement of gravel. So what Mr. Reaping was doing was leveling that off so that it's able to be traversed with his company vans and those types of things.
So just to be clear, on the depiction here, is this the gravelled area? Is that how it sits today?
Well, by survey, and we have our own survey crew, we did not do the survey, but I know our survey crew, when they go out to a site and they say, well, that's sort of where the gravel ended, but there were weeds there. So I'm going to say maybe clearly identified as gravel, but from some of the images from the, street view, you can see that whole front area was gravel back in 2003 when the business was there where the dumpster's located. So I think over the years, certainly weeds maybe have grown up into it just like any other gravel surface. This just happened to be what the survey depicted as the gravel area.
Okay. Trying to skip through the other view.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Yeah, I was trying to find it for what's in the erosion control manual, what that meaning set is. I'm not.
Well, I know that
Finding it
DEP
quickly.
has recently changed their definition.
I believe it's 0.86. That's,
Yeah,
but don't quote me on that. If that's the case, it's higher than 0.85.
and I'll I'll be honest with you, I did find that section as well, and that's under the supplemental regulations, landscaping and buffering section of the code. Which is
What is the,
that landscaped, where it says under, I have it at 220-51C1A, is that where you're reading that?
220-68 for off-street parking and loading?
Because it also is noted in the supplemental regulations, but that's under landscaping, about being, curb shall be constructed of asphalt or durable material. I'm sorry. That's what I was reading.
Yeah, no, this is under the off-street parking and loading section, under the zoning. So I think that's the homework here.
Okay.
Figure out what those values are and work it out with staff and then come back here next month, right, for approval,
Okay.
for a recommendation.
Okay, well, I understand.
Okay. Anything else that anyone wants to add on this? We'll move on to the next item. Okay, the next item on the agenda is a discussion for consideration for SP-6-24 and S-16-24, the Tobin subdivision, a minor subdivision application, and preliminary and final land development application. Before we start discussion on that, my company was the consultant for this project, so I'm going to recuse myself and actually step down and from the panel and partially present this to you folks and answer any questions you have.
To take things over from here. Sure, I can do that. This is a preliminary and final major land development applications. It's a 10.58 acre lot. I believe it's going to be subdivided into 4 separate lots. I can pull the plan and present that on the screen as well. You have the,
Yeah, it is.
okay, sorry, I apologize. I wasn't sure if he was chiming in. You can keep that and then I'll get you set up.
Yeah, basically, this is a project that we've seen before here. It's been before you before as part of the conditional use for the major excavation and earthwork. It's along Klein Hollow Road, right across from the existing Barrington Heights plan. It's a 10-acre, about 10.5-acre property. For slopes on it, it's not really buildable. That would be, this area up here it's hard to access. We are putting a lot there, which would be the remainder of the property. The 3 main lots for building would be up here on top, private drive getting across there. And this property is tough because there's an existing 60-foot wide gas right-of-way that traverses through it. Pretty simple project, very simple project. There isn't a whole lot to it. It's constructing this driveway. Like I said, it goes up through here. There's going to be a small stormwater facility located in this area. You see on a residential lot because it's only collecting that small driveway. Each lot here will have its own stormwater management. Mike, you have the grading plan there? Maybe that might be more appropriate to look at. As part of the land LDP or land development file.
Yes, I have it right here.
Yeah, that'll show some more of these details. It should be that 4th page.
That one?
Yeah, there we go.
You can
So
go
there,
back and forth on there if you'd like.
Oh, I can.
With the clicker, it can go
do
back.
that. I'll end up messing something up there. This is that small infiltration trench that I talked about. And each lot will have its own little rain garden or bioretention facility that'll treat each yard and each home. This infiltration trench is only, I think it's about 10 by 60, so it's relatively, it's small. It's going to discharge, connect into this existing storm drain system, which goes down Klein Hollow Road and discharges into a stream directly, which meets the definition of off-site stormwater. The rest of this runoff from these facilities will flow down here to, this is also an existing intermittent stream that comes through here and shoots out right onto our property. These areas of yellow and red are the areas of steep slopes that I mentioned. And as you can see, we're pretty much staying out of those with the exception of building this driveway. Currently, right now, there is an old access road that goes through where we're putting this driveway that the gas company uses to get up in there if need be for maintenance or anything. So we tried to keep everything to a minimum as far as the disturbance goes. What else? So FTMSA for sanitary sewer. We're going to be connecting into the existing sanitary sewer in Fair Oaks Drive. There's an existing easement in place across this parcel for us to access that. We've submitted it to FTMSA to have them look at preliminarily, them and their engineer. They're okay with it. They need to see they need to complete their formal review, which they need a planning module to do so. We've requested the information from them as part of that planning module, which is treatment flow capacities and things like that, for us to be able to provide that to them. And then once we have that, we'll get them that for the formal review and approval. NPDES permitting through the Conservation District, we've submitted that. That has received its initial completeness, and it's in the final stages of review right now. I don't anticipate a whole lot from that, just because of the small size of the project. I mean, we're not talking big earth disturbance, huge sediment basins or things of that nature. It's mainly going to be handled by this small little sediment trap and then silt sock on the back sides of these homes. We did receive a review letter from the municipality, including their engineer. It's fairly lengthy, but there were things in there that were repeated numerous times because they're repeated numerous times throughout our ordinance. I think the NPDES, the requirement that we needed Conservation District approval and an NPDES permit shows up, I think 7 times in our ordinance, so it shows up 7 times in that letter. There were a lot of house cleaning, I will call them items that were minor in nature. This plan hasn't, and that's evidenced by the fact that this plan hasn't changed much since you folks have seen it as part of the conditional use application. We did provide some screening as part of the revisions, as part of that review around this facility out front that was required. That's another point of our ordinance that I don't really like, where we have, I think it's stormwater basin, I think is a terminology used, which where we need to provide screening for. In my mind, this isn't a stormwater basin. This is something, as stormwater goes to these more low-impact facilities, it's something we as a municipality probably should consider and take into account if we're going to you try to promote those things, and as stormwater goes that way, that we have some flexibility in those definitions and that understanding that not everything falls into a stormwater basin anymore. That being said, there were only a few, we took care of all the comments in the letter. There were only a few items that really we need to potentially have some discussion on, or that we took exception to. One being, there's a section of stormwater ordinance that says that a fence similar to that is what is required for a swimming pool facility should be required for stormwater basins as deemed appropriate. It doesn't say it's required, it says it's deemed appropriate. My opinion, that doesn't apply to this small facility. This thing's small, it's 3 feet deep. maximum to the berm. It's only going to ever have 2 feet of water in it in a major storm event, like a 100-year storm. It seems kind of overkill to try to put a fence around here, especially given the fact of maintenance, trying to get in there and maintain it for such a small thing, and then you fence it in with a 6-foot fence. I don't even know. It would be very tough to do. So there was that item, and then there's the items for the driveway, for the modifications for the driveway that you folks have all seen before. We don't have a clear set of guidelines for private driveways, so the default is to go back to a non-municipal local road, which is the same requirements for a municipal road. 25 mile per hour, big sweeping radiuses and things of that nature. So we'd be asking modification from those, which would be in line with similar proposals that we've recommended approval for in the past. 15% is the slope, on the design slope on this driveway. That's less than what the maximum slope for a driveway for a residential use is 15%. So we're at that. So we meet that condition.
Does it exceed that at all, or is it
No,
at 15?
no, it does not. I think it's slightly under it by 0.1%. Don't hold me to that. But it is not over. It's either 15 or under. And then it does flatten out. It does flatten out.
Chris, how wide's the driveway?
15 feet, which is what we have done in the past.
15 or 16? 1.6 or 1.5? I couldn't hear you.
15.
It's 15, correct? 5. Yeah, 1.5.
Okay, and it's going to be surfaced in some manner?
Yeah, it'll be paved with a wedge curb on one side, and we're also putting 2 storm drain. I'm using. You can't see it, my pointer, but everybody else can. There'll be a storm drain inlet here and here.
Here and down below.
Yep,
Yeah.
so 2 storm drain inlets. This one, since it's on that, we're going to put a channel in here to make sure it gets directed to that stormwater facility. This one will just dump right into it.
Now you have, you're not real, the only place that you're affecting the existing gas line is where you're crossing it at the top of the hill, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And we've had discussions with them, the applicant has. They want us to, we basically can't change the grade there. So we're coming up to that existing right of way, and you can see there's really no grading going on. We're pretty much laying that driveway around the existing ground. We're allowed to cross it. They want it to be at a 90-degree angle, which is why it comes up there the way it does. And the same with the utilities. They'll be coming across there at basically that 90-degree angle as well.
Is there a turnaround for emergency vehicles somewhere?
We don't have a specific turnaround. I mean, the turnaround would be within this easement across here, so they could. And I'm glad you brought that up. That's one thing I was thinking and forgot of. There was a comment to provide documentation that there we go. That I believe it was a 220-inch or something. A vehicle with a 220-inch wheelbase for a fire truck could access the site. So we did the truck turning movements for that to show that it could traverse this. It could come up through here and make this turn to get to this house. Then it could also come up the driveway and make the turn to get to this house. So the turnaround would be to come in one of those directions and back up.
And back into it, okay. Is that all in a public right of way or?
Yeah. Well, the private right away, yes.
All right.
Would this be considered a driveway or a private road? And I don't know if that distinction matters. I guess the question I'm going toward is, will there be some sort of maintenance agreement, or who will be responsible for maintaining this?
Yeah, that was one of the comments, and that's what we said. We'll supply that for the solicitor to take a look at and review. I mean, that would be something that would have to be completed and recorded.
Okay.
Yeah. I've seen those placed on a subdivision plan before, because they don't need to be that lengthy, but that would be something that will work, just to make sure the solicitor's okay with that.
Chris, can you go to C41, page C41?
I'm sorry.
You
Yeah.
got it?
That, the graph on the left, can you kind of explain what that is?
Yeah, I'll walk up here.
You may need a mic just for the, sorry.
This is the profile for the driveway, so it's looking at it, but it's exaggerated, like 1 to 10, so it's exaggerated this way. So this is where it accesses it, and here's where we're coming up, and I believe that's, I don't know if it's 15.0 or 14.9. It comes up, and then flattens out a little bit, goes up again, and then flattens out as we're crossing this gas right away. I believe this line here is right where the gas line is. So you can see see this little line right there, the dash line? That's the existing grade. Dark line is the proposed grade. This line represents where the gas line is located, so you can see we're hitting it right at the existing.
What is that slope?
15.
15,
15, okay.
yeah.
Any other,
So you don't have your NPDS permit yet, Chris, do you not?
No, that's something I expect probably in the next 45 days, I would say. 45 to 60.
Okay, so that's a condition of, would be a condition of approval then.
Yeah, I think those third-party, there'd be several third parties, with FTMSA, the Conservation District would be those third-party approvals that would need to be a condition of it as well.
Chris, this is what's the elevation at the top? Just roughly. The high point there of the road.
Right around 1,100, I believe.
Okay, so you're gonna run a water line all the way up there to the
Yes.
top of the hill?
Yeah, that's been discussed with MAWC, and they've kind of given the applicant guidelines for how they want that done.
Okay.
So what's the vertical drop?
is that located on here? I can zoom in.
It is. It's on 4.1 with that profile.
Bear with me. Once I get zoomed in.
You'll probably be able to read those numbers on your screen, Mike. I don't, oh, there we go.
We're talking
This is
about
an eye
up here.
test.
Oh, I lied to you. It's 1,200 up top, 1,228.
Down at the bottom is,
It's a hike.
So the and MAWC can serve that?
As far as I know, yeah. I mean, they were given all the information.
Okay, and you have a letter of approval from them, I assume?
No, but we will get that.
Okay.
I guess you're not going to need a regulator up top to control pressure.
Yeah, I think that's, Mike, do you recall what size they wanted that line? Yeah, so they wanted each one to have their own separate line, right? Yeah, so the way they wanted it, I just wanted to confirm that was each house is going to have a 2-inch line, and that's to everyone's point here, I think, which is what Bob was referring to, that elevation difference. No one runs a 2-inch line to serve a single-family home, but they want that additional capacity because they have enough pressure up there and capacity.
okay. Any,
Isn't the stuff on the other side of the road, the other plan that Patulski did, isn't it higher in elevation than this?
There are some. Up there on top of the hill is very high, yeah.
Yeah, it's higher than this. They're served over there.
Yeah, and I tell you, that's a good point. Those lots on the top of Barrington, I think, might be the highest point. If it's not the highest point in Murraysville, it's one of the highest points. There's not much,
Yeah.
not much it's higher than that. I think they might be like 80 feet higher than this at the top here.
So if this is for final approval, is that correct?
It would be preliminary and final since it's preliminary final since it's a minor subdivision and preliminary final land development are the same.
Okay, so the conditions that we would be imposed would be to obtain your NPDS approval from the Conservation District, approval of letters from the gas company to cross their main, approval from FTMSA and MAWC.
Yes.
Is there anything else that would be included in there? Mike, Jane, anybody
I
else?
can't think of anything.
The waiver of the fence requirement.
Yeah, the fence requirement, I think for the pond, potentially the slope, is that?
Well, it would be all those road requirements. It would be a modification for all those requirements for the road. It's not really clear to me whether we need a modification for the fence, although if you want to word it that way, just to clear it up and not create confusion, that would probably be best. But yeah, it'd be the modifications from the roadway to the proposed private driveway conditions.
Okay, so it include approval of the modifications that you requested.
Yes.
Staff did review those, the submissions from the applicant and did not have any concerns about the request for those modifications.
So a motion to approval could include the provisions that, he gets his NPDS permit, approvals from FTMSA, MAWC, the gas company, and submit the modifications in writing. Is there anything else? If not, I'll put that in the form of a motion.
So
Second.
moved, Bob.
We have,
I'm second.
Bob, I'm correct in that you made the motion?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and we did have a second, so we can.
I second.
Okay.
Got second, third, and fourth.
All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed?
No.
Okay, motion does carry.
All right. Thank you. I will return to my post.
It's gonna be a great sledding hill.
Yeah, I know.
There are no other items
This is,
listed on the agenda for this evening. I don't know if planning has any other business to conduct or any other items for this evening. Seeing none.
another one just like this. I forget what it was, but I remember